Now, Josh, let's move over to Group B here and preview this exciting group.
Well, this exciting group for a lot of the CONCACAF viewers, exciting because it features the United States coming off of a solid CONCACAF tournament. They did have some injuries, but with everything going right, they could have a full team with Weston McKennie back in the lineup by November. He should be able to return. Gio Reyna will be fully healthy as well, but the United States faces a tough challenge at the top of that group in their familiar rivals in England.
And one thing I want to preface as we go through, Josh, this entire, Group A through Group H, is that we don't really know what the final rosters are going to be, but what we're touching upon is some of the larger names, the stars with each team. So the final 23s, of course, will be announced in the fall. But you're exactly right, Josh. I think right now, USA, difficult result, against a disappointing result against Costa Rica in their most recent 2-0 loss. But as long as Serginho Dest is healthy, Weston McKennie, Giovanni Reyna, Christian Pulisic, and, all the other supporting cast of talent, I think they could very likely move through. But the big story is the matchup with England and England in general. What do you think of that team, the Three Lions?
It's always an exciting rivalry, and I'd be remiss not to bring up what happened the last time these two faced each other in a World Cup. Back in 2010, England leading 1-0. Clint Dempsey sends a slow roller towards the keeper, Robbie Green, and he famously did not hang on to the ball. United States surprisingly earning back a point against England, and that ended up giving them a crucial point in a group that they ended up winning.
That's exactly right. And if we go back to 1950, of course, these two teams have played each other twice in World Cup play. 1950 in what is arguably considered the greatest upset in World Cup history. The U.S. defeated England 1-0 with a supporting cast of, I believe their captain at the time was an elementary teacher in Pennsylvania. He was the captain of that U.S. team in 1950. So they've gotten two results. Let's see if they get a third in this year's edition of the World Cup. Josh, Iran, thoughts on this team, the AFC champion?
Iran, another team that is experienced kind of a renaissance in soccer, not a historically great soccer nation, but they do have some World Cup experience, and they are led by one of the most underrated strikers, I think, in this entire draw in Mehdi Taremi. Plays for the Portuguese giant FC Porto. He is the only player with double-digit goals and double assists and has contributed to more goals than anyone in that league. His 14 goals are third in La Liga Portugal, and his 11 assists are second. And I think Iran's chances really begin and end with how good he can be in this World Cup. But it is a tall order, as even the playoff under Iran is featuring a lot of talent with Ukraine, Scotland, and Wales, of course, led by the Real Madrid winger, Gareth Bale.
One thing I want to say about Iran is that they've been quite successful in the AFC Confederation for years now. There's multiple, they were in the last World Cup, consecutive World Cup appearances. Additionally, they have never advanced past group stage, but in the last two World Cups, came very close. And what eliminated them was ultimately wonder strikes in both games that ultimately eliminated Iran. So definitely a tough opponent for this group. Josh, Ukraine, Scotland, Wales. We know Wales is advancing in the final of that playoff. Now it's between Ukraine and Scotland. Who do you think initially advances Ukraine and Scotland?
I think Ukraine is a deceptively deep team, another team that may not be in a golden generation. There is some good soccer history in that country, but they have a lot of top talent in some of the top leagues. They have February's Player of the Month for Serie A in Ruslan Malinovsky, a good guy who can play in the midfield and in the attack. One of the better players in the Premier League this season in Yarmolenko as well. So they have a solid midfield and attack, and a lot of guys from Shakhtar Donetsk, the premier team in Ukraine, will be featuring on this side as well. I just think they're going to be too deep for Scotland.
Additionally, Zinchenko, of course, of Man City is also on that team. I think ultimately they could make a run, especially with the global atmosphere right now, everyone having their back, so all the support there. But let's talk about, Wales or Ukraine, who advances and plays, in this group.
I'm going to be rooting for Ukraine. I can confidently say that, but I think that with Wales, it could be biased because I am a Real Madrid fan, but something that I've seen from Gareth Bale is in big moments, he makes things happen. And when you have a player like that who can break the game open with one big run, with one big free kick, as we saw during the qualifiers, that is hard to beat. And I think Gareth Bale is going to come up big against Ukraine and ultimately push his Welsh side back into the World Cup.
I'm going to counter that, Josh. I personally think Ukraine will advance, but that'll be seen. Looking forward to that match between Scotland and then ultimately that final against Wales. So we'll see how that group plays out.